really hosting this event and their vision in terms of bringing farm workers together and so many other issues that we have today. It's really an honor to be here and join with all these folks. And we have a number of farm workers from companies where they're working under union contract in the Strawberries and Gallup Sonoma. Appreciate their participation with us here today. You know, the titlement of this conference is Harvesting Change. And there's a lot to talk about, but one basic theme that we've learned from the beginning is that you need to empower farm workers. So that's what I'm going to talk about, different ways that we've tried to do that throughout our history. But I would want to just take a moment because oftentimes people will ask, well, how did you get engaged in this? Why are you a part of this farm worker movement? And I had my humble beginnings back in San Antonio, Texas. Our parish priest, Father Marvin Derfler, went down to the Rio Grande Valley to participate in one of the strikes that was taking place back then in the melon fields. And he went to join in a march, then he got arrested, and then he stayed in jail for a while, and came back and told, boy, this is exciting, this is great, what Cesar Chavez is doing. This is what nonviolence is all about. He was really living the gospel, is the way he told us. And so I, like so many others, when I went to college, was looking for ways to do something that would make a change, that would utilize my talents and the skills and the opportunities that I had that so many others didn't have. So I became one of those boycotters back in the 1960s and in the 70s. And then I had a chance to meet Richard Chavez, Cesar's brother. And upon graduating, he said, you know what, Arturo, come to work with us for 6 months. 6 months, that was the way they got us all in. 6 months became now 38 years. But I've never regretted a moment, but it really taught me the power of these boycotts. Because out of those boycotts, we got our first contracts ever for farm workers in the fields. We were able to deal with issues like pesticides, as we heard earlier today, to control the use of cancer and birth defect causing chemicals. We were able to do with the sexual harassment of women that takes place and the exploitation of women and other workers, to deal with issues like wages and benefits like a health plan and a health and safety committee so that we control the use of things. So there was a lot of benefits that came as a result of involving. At one point, a national survey said 17 million Americans in the mid-70s were participating in our boycotts in some particular way. And it also won us the opportunity to have the first opportunity for farm workers to get the right to organize here in the United States. And that came in 1975, through a lot of sacrifice that farm workers made to be able to achieve that. And with that, then we began winning elections and so forth. But we also learned that by winning legislation, that wasn't going to be enough, that the contracts were important. So we had to figure out, and I'll tell a short story about a woman that kind of illustrates what even laws exist. Those laws oftentimes that are on the books are really not the laws that exist in the fields for the farm workers. In 2005, we were able to get finally a heat stress law passed here in the state of California. But a young woman, Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez, 17-year-old Oaxacan immigrant, she was pregnant, was working in the wine grape fields in the northern San Joaquin Valley. She went to work that morning at 6 a.m. as usual, but by 10:30 a.m., the foremans still hadn't brought the workers water. And it was one of those days in May of 2008 that the temperature was extremely high. So by mid-afternoon, it was already 105 degrees plus there. They didn't get the rest that day they should have. They didn't have the shade like the law said. And as a result, she collapsed in the fields by mid-afternoon. And then, at that point, the foreman didn't do what he was supposed to do. Didn't call 911, didn't get her to emergency, didn't take her to a clinic. And so consequently, she stayed there in the fields, was eventually taking over to the van that had been sitting in that hot sun all day long, so it was like an oven when they got in there at the end of the workday. And finally, the foreman said, well, take her by the drugstore and get her some rubbing alcohol and put that on her and see what that does. Well, that didn't do anything to really relieve the pain and what was going on with Maria Isabel. So finally, her boyfriend, Florentino, convinced the driver that we got to take her to a clinic. Well, en route, the foreman calls the driver and says, make sure that he does not say anything about where Maria Isabel was working. Make sure that he says that he found her while she was exercising, while she was jogging. When they got to the clinic, they took her in. They found out that her body temperature was 108.8 degrees. You can just imagine what the inside of her body looked like at that point. Well, unfortunately, Maria Isabel died two days later. And it was another tragic story. In fact, just in this state alone, 16 farm workers have died since 2005 of heat stress. This year, we're investigating 3 more deaths. We know that we can't rely on the state. There's just not enough money that government's going to apply to the enforcement of laws. So that's why it becomes so important to get contracts, to get agreements with growers, to set up standards, to ensure that they're going to abide by the law. So we're enforcing the law. So as a result of that now, we have strawberry workers here from one of the largest strawberry farms here in the state of California. We have the largest organic farmer here, Swanton Berry Farm. We have workers at Gallo of Sonoma, the largest winery here in the state. We have now representation with one of the largest vegetable companies in the state. We have 75% of the mushroom industry here in the state of California under contract. And then we have the largest dairy west of the Mississippi in the state of Oregon under contract. So it gives us an opportunity to really set standards and set controls for farm workers. But again, farm workers today are continuing to want to organize. One election that recently happened was at Jamara Vineyards. And 2 of the 16 farm workers that I've mentioned that died of heat stress worked at that farm, and the workers said, you know, that's enough. So he did a tremendous job of going out and organizing there at their company, and they got 80% of the workers to sign up saying they wanted a voice on the job, they wanted representation for the United Farm Workers. They held their election 7 days later, and there was so much intimidation, coercion, and threats that took place. The grower was telling them that if you vote for the union, we're going to pull out all the vineyards. If you vote for the union, we're going to tear down all the labor camps so you don't have any housing. If you vote for the union, you're not going to have a job this next year in the pruning season. So workers being without legal status here in this country felt intimidated and coerced, and they need a job. They can't function without a job. So consequently, when the election happened 7 days later, that 80% went down to 48%. We lost 32% in 7 days. If any politician would be in an election campaign like that and they lost that percentage, they knew something was wrong. They knew something happened that really changed the dynamics of what was taking place there and the enthusiasm of the workers. So as a result, we filed and we got the state to throw out the election. But they'd said also, look, you know, that there's no remedy here. The only thing we can do is that we can order a new election to take place. Well, we don't need the law to be able to do that. We have that right already. So we knew that we had to reform this law and look for other ways to make changes. So then we got together with the farm workers and we decided, you know what? We've got to introduce new legislation and put pressure so that we can have that right to organize. 5 times we introduced laws. 5 times the governors, Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown, during his first few months, vetoed that law. Here recently, we decided, well, we got to do something more. So farm workers like Alejandro Nolasco, that's here with us today, we decided to march. And we embarked on a 200-mile march that took us 13 days in August of this year. During the heat of the San Joaquin Valley, days were well over 100 degrees. And we went and we did what we know best. We went and involved the farm workers, and we went and involved people from all over the place to build that coalition that was necessary to bring about the pressure to legislators and make sure that the governor heard our voice. And so during the march, it was such an emotional experience, a very religious one, because people came from their homes, people joined with us, people fed us every single day. We didn't go to restaurants. We ate right there in the parks, in their homes, in their halls and their church halls and things like that. At night, they would take us to their homes to sleep. The next morning, they would join with us in marching or join with us in some religious service to mark and to prepare us for that day. But it really taught us, once again, the value of working with people and having faith and believing in people. And so consequently, there was so much emotion and so much excitement that by the time we got to Sacramento on September the 4th, we had over 5,000 people that joined us there. Farm workers from throughout the state came and were a part of that. And that impressed the governor. That showed the governor that we're not standing alone, that we have lots of people there that are supporting the work that we do, and he heard the voice of farm workers. So as a result, we got him to sign this past Sunday, SB 126, which talks about justice for farm workers. And as a result now, with that legislation, farm workers, when they go have an election, they can vote, and they know that if the grower violates the law, the state has a right to give us a contract immediately. So that is going to bring about significant change for farm workers and give them the encouragement and the hope that we can, and we do have a solution to really be able to change those conditions, to deal with the issues that they face every day, whether it's heat stress, pesticides, sexual harassment, wages, working conditions. Farm workers will have a solution to their problem and to their issue. So we are very honored again to be with you and to share with you just some of the tools that we've used throughout the last 50 years. Next year we celebrate our 50th anniversary, and we are going to be enjoying and bringing together people to celebrate the history, but more important, talk about what we're doing now and today, and to work with folks and to ensure that we can really significantly continue to bring about solutions for changes for farm workers here in the United States and to ensure those victories that are necessary. If you're interested in being a part of our movement, if you're interested in being a part of that 50th anniversary, please go to our website, ufw.org, and become part of our free listserv so that you can also partake and join with farm workers in creating a better future for themselves, but also creating a better future for consumers here throughout the United States. Thank you very much. Si se puede, it can be done.